Hi there, everyone. My name is Jimmy Barrios. I'm an IT professional with a little over 15 years in IT, a little over 4 years now on the security side of things, offensive, defensive, play a little bit of both roles in my current organization. Um, I'm an AWS community builder. Recently, just got accepted into the AWS community builders under the security category. I'm excited for that. Um, in these labs, I'm going to start creating some labs around it's going to be AWS Security Lab series, trying to showcase some attack and defend strategies within AWS, where there's some infrastructure set up, when you have some misconfigurations, and how that can be abused, and then ways to protect and correct those misconfigurations when they're identified. So we're going to start with CloudTrail as the foundation, being that CloudTrail logs a lot of the API activity that happens within AWS, and as we all know, AWS, most if not all the services are API related calls happening within in AWS to in all your infrastructure. So here we in this lab, I created this in Terraform just to get a little more hands-on experience with infrastructure as code. It's a very simple lab. It just spins up an S3 bucket, and then the rest of it is all a manual process. We'll do some attacking on against the S3 buckets, create a couple of IAM users, check our logs to see if anything got logged in CloudTrail, and that's when we'll find out that CloudTrail unfortunately was never set up or just was not set up in our region when that account was created. Then we'll go ahead and go through the process of configuring CloudTrail, CloudWatch, and logs, and rerun our attacks so that we can then see how the API calls create those logs and what to look for in the logs of what you should be monitoring for. So we'll go ahead and start with spinning up our lab here on Terraform. I already have, this is the lab, so we'll go ahead and do Terraform init. And if you want to follow along, you can download this lab from my GitHub. You'll find it on the AWS Security Labs uh, repository. From there, I'm going to be putting a lot of other labs that I go through the process of creating. I'm going to try and create at least 10 labs for now and work up from there. So now we're going to go ahead and do Terraform plan so we can see what is going to be launching in our Terraform. Okay, this is what we're going to be expecting. We're going to want to take note of this trail name. We're gonna be using this when we go through the process of creating our CloudTrail trail. Okay, so now we're going to go and do Terraform apply, and we'll do auto approve so we don't have to say yes. And again, it would have been a lot quicker to just spin up S3 bucket on the console or even through the CLI, but I just wanted to get some practice with the infrastructure as code. All right, so here's our output. This is the S3 bucket that was just created, and this is the trail name that we're going to want to go ahead and copy because we're going to be using that. So we want to save that information. All right, so if we follow along on our README here, this is what the architecture is going to be, which we just went over: S3, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, logs, and then our AIM users. we're gonna start with playing the attacker role here. We're gonna, be the attacker and go ahead and we identified some secret access keys, and we're gonna try and do some API calls to our S3 buckets and try and create an account, a user account, and then we'll check our logs to see if anything was logged. Because based off of our lab, we were handed a. If we look at the summary of our lab, we were handed a pen test report, and they want to know what happened with some unexplained API activities that happened in the account. We were asked to look at look at CloudTrail logs, and we'll come to find out that CloudTrail was never enabled, so we have no logs for that. So we'll go ahead and start here with, let's clear our screen, AWS S3 API, list buckets, and we'll just do our region, US East 1. All right, that's going to be one log that should occur in your CloudTrail just by doing that one call. Let's do another here. Let's just do a list. Okay. And then the lab calls to go ahead and create a user. I'm not going to go through that process because I know it's not going to log anything at this point. But if you want to get hands-on practice using the AWS CLI, you can go through and just create your users and see what, how that process goes through and how you can query it. So if we go into our console, have it open here, we look at our S3 bucket that we should have created here. We go into our S3 bucket. We see that, oh, there's no logs. So now what we're going to do is let's check CloudTrail. Let's see if we can search for it. Let's look at CloudTrail and see what we find here. And in CloudTrail, we're going to check here. We're going to go into our trails. And, oh, we have no trails. We have no logs stored. AWS by default does store these API calls, what they call their management logs. So we will see them here under the event histories, but this is only stored, I believe, for 90 days, and we can't pass these logs into our S3 bucket, right? This is AWS's logs. We have no control of these logs to be able to save them and store them and pass them on to CloudWatch, where we can then do more querying against those logs. But you will see those calls in here for up to 90 days, right? And then you can query them from here, but you just won't have a historical view of your logs. So with that, next thing we want to do now is we're going to go ahead and, if we follow our next thing here, which is our Defender, we're checking the log. We checked CloudTrail, didn't list anything. We can even do that through the CLI. We can go ahead and try and list our logs, our CloudTrail trails. So if you do here, again, if you want to get some hands-on with CloudTrail, you can do CloudTrail describe. I believe it's trails, and then you can do your region. Oh no, mistyped something here, didn't I? Oh yeah, I put regions. There we go. And same thing that we just did in the console, you can do on your CLI here, and you'll see trail lists blank. We can do the same thing for our logs. So we can do here describe log groups, I believe it is. Oh, log group name. Well, actually, we don't even have a log group name set up, so there's no point of doing that. So what we're going to do now is we'll go ahead and create our CloudTrail. This is where we wanted to store, where we had to save our name so we can use the name the lab is recommending to use. So if we come back here, we'll go to the dashboard, and then under CloudTrail, trails, right, we can just do create trail. We'll give our trail the name that we just copied. We're going to use the existing S3 bucket that we have where we thought our logs were being saved. Choose that bucket. You need to create a KMS key unless you have an existing one. In my case, I believe I have an existing one, so I'll just use the same one I already have. If not, you can just go ahead and create a new one. Then we're going to also, in this process from here, we'll just go ahead and enable CloudWatch as well. And you can call it, I don't know, we'll call it something like, we'll label it something similar. Dash CloudTrail events. Okay, and you'll also have to create your AIM role. Just give it a name. You set up your, unless you have an existing one. So I didn't do this through the CLI because you would have to create the role by hand. You can't just, you'd have to put in all your permissions into the role. So it was a lot easier to just do it through the console. I already have one here, I believe, so I'm just going to use the same one I had already created. And policy documents, we can leave that as default. We'll hit next. All right, then here's where you have the option for your different events. Like I said, management events are already captured by AWS by default, but we can't store them in CloudTrail, and we can't keep a historical of them in our S3 buckets, and we can't send them to CloudWatch. So we want to make sure we enable that's enabled. Data events is mainly for your it's for data calls if somebody's trying to put data into your reading data from your S3 buckets or reading data from your RDS databases and whatnot. It's data events, like it says. Insight events is gonna identify unusual activities, unusual errors, and unusual, like it says, unusual account behaviors. You typically want to enable this in your production environment. We're not going to enable it here, and not in this lab. Network activity events, like it says, it's going to monitor all your VPC calls, all your VPC endpoints. Any network type activity is going to be monitored if you enable this. A lot of this is very noisy, so expect you'll have large logs if you do have a lot of activity going on in your environment. Everything else stays as default. We'll hit next. All right, and we'll create our trail. Okay, once you create your trail, if we go into it, we just want to double check, make sure that it is logging. So if you see here saying stop logging, that's telling you that your current status of your trail is enabled and it's logging. So now we can go through and once again just try and do some calls see if we log some of this activity. And we'll just list out our buckets here. And this time we'll actually go ahead and create an AIM user. So let's just create a user here. Username, let's do lab02 hardened. And I misspelled that. Yeah, that's fine. And that created a user now in our AIM as an AIM user. So if we go back here and we'll do lists AIM users. Oh. Ah. I always forget the syntaxes too of these things. Let's see. I'm missing. There we go. List users. There we go. And there we go. Here's our new user that we added. So if we check our logs, we should see some logs being stored in our S3 bucket. Now, if we go back into our S3 bucket, we have our AWS logs. You start going through, you'll start seeing your logs being ingested here. When we first set them up, it might take a little while for the logs to actually start populating. So you might have to wait 10-15 minutes or so for your logs to start generating. We can go back. Let's go back to CloudTrail. And let's see our trails. Let's go in here. Oh. What am I doing? We're gonna go to CloudWatch. Is where I wanted to go. So we'll go to CloudWatch. If we go into logs, this is our, if you go into log insights, we're going to see our log that we created earlier, right? Once data starts flowing in, we'll start seeing some data in here. I have in the lab, I went ahead and I put this query that you can run to check for that user that we created. So we run it through. Oh, look, there it is. It's already there. Let me see if I can bring this up a bit. I don't think I can, but yeah, it kind of sucks. Doesn't let me collapse this, does it? Oh, there we go. And so here we go. Here we see our API call that we did to create our user. It tells you the event name was create user. It'll give you up here to show you the log trail. So this here, if you notice, this is our cloud trail that captured that that event call, and it has everything you need to start your investigation from here. If you have guard duty, it's, all this gets sent to guard duty, and everything, anything else to that's going to be your detecting mechanism. So once again, without logging your CloudTrail logs and having them stored, you're going to have a hard time going back to looking and painting that picture of what happened in that attack chain, leading up to whatever issues you might have had in your environment. So on here, like I said, why it matters. A lot of breaches and abuses technically go undetected. A lot of them go undetected because there's no logging in place for when the attacks happen. So it's very difficult for an incident response team to come in and trace it back to that initial point of compromise, and and help the organization. So that's it with this lab. At this now you can just go ahead and tear down your labs. Make sure to delete any users you might have created. The Terraform teardown is only going to tear down the S3 bucket. Before you tear down the S3 bucket, just make sure you delete your CloudTrail and CloudWatch logs that we created, and then you can go ahead and tear down that S3 bucket. So thank you guys. And stay tuned. I'll go ahead and be creating more videos like this in the near future. I'm hoping to create at least 10, back-to-back security, AWS security videos. Help me learn, and also hopefully help some others out there learn as well. Thank you.